Dick Dastardly's driving like a madman, trying to overtake the leaders.
Hello and welcome to this video. This is Amazing Racing Stories, episode 12, Cheating and Winning in Early Grand Prix Racing. Since I remember being myself that I admire pioneers, from Marco Polo, the Italian merchant that traveled through Asia to China in the 13th century, to the Portuguese sailors that 500 years ago found the maritime ways that we still use today to travel by boat across the planet. From the first pioneers of the air to the first drivers. I always loved these black and white films. When I saw these pictures and films, I could only think about two words: pioneers and adventure. Do you remember the first time you went out on an adventure with your friends when you were a kid or a teenager? Can you remember the feeling? To be a racing driver and or a riding mechanic in this era was something like going on a great and long adventure. You never knew when something could go wrong. From a puncture to a faulty magneto, from an engine failure to a crash. And in these early years, many times, they were driving the car that they had built themselves. I love that. Some of the car brands you know today were born around this time by guys that were racing their own machinery. They were pioneers, opening the way for others to come through. Early Grand Prix racing is, well, to me it's a perfect mix between three modern categories: F1 or Grand Prix racing, if you prefer, the WRC, and also the World Endurance Championship, WEC. Yes, newcomer, I can hear you asking, what the fuck is this guy talking about here? I clicked on a motorsport cheating video. I will come to that. If you are in a hurry, please use the timestamps in the description of the video and go to your preferred section in a click. And when I was a kid, I loved the Wacky Races. Even my 2.5 years nephew is cracking with them right now. And I am training him to be the next Max Verstappen. But don't tell anyone. Well, what I disliked in the Wacky Races is the fact that Dick Dastardly, the bad guy, the cheater, never won a race in that series, despite of being pretty close sometimes. I know perfectly that they were trying to pass a message for us, to be a good person in life, and crime or cheating is not worth it. But let's face it, in real life and in our reality, motor racing has always been about cheating, without being caught, obviously. Today I am bringing you a story that was a secret for almost 50 years. This is the very first case in history, as far as I know, where the cheaters won the race. If you know other cases, please put it in the comments. I always loved these kind of stories, and you will help me with the freaking YouTube algorithm. And if you really enjoyed this story and video, please share it with your friends. It was really hard work and long time to dig this, and my YouTube numbers are kind of low. Well, today is a great day. It's a kind of situation where Dick Dastardly is winning a race. Finally. Final note. The film I am going to show you is about the 1907 race, but they inserted some 1908 race footage in the middle of it. This was normal at the time, as, due to the lack of available footage, this way they could extend the duration of the film, and people wouldn't notice it. It was a novelty, after all. Remember that this was displayed in the cinema theaters at the time. It had no sound, so there was a pianist playing alongside the footage. Having said this, let's pretend that I did not give you any information. and let's begin.
Mutley, we've got this race in the bag.
Most modern motorsport fans complain that F1 is boring and they never saw an early Grand Prix race. So, I would like to start this by making an experiment with you, if possible. If you are watching this on a mobile phone, it won't work. Please watch the following film in a big screen and turn off the lights. Simulate an old cinema theater and let's travel in time. Let's go 120 years ago. This experiment is not possible in any other way. If you go for it, let me know how it went. Are you ready? Great. Let's go.
going to win this race yet, Mutley?
Maurice Césaire trained as an architect, but after seeing a steam tricycle, possibly an early de Dion Bouton, pass by the front of his home when he was only 8 years old, Césaire had harbored a secret ambition to build a self-propelled vehicle. In his early teens, at the beginning of the 1890s, he began experimenting in his bedroom workshop. He set himself the task of absorbing as much as he could of contemporary cycle and motor technology. He even persuaded his younger brother, George, to become a trainee turner in a bicycle factory so that he might have help in realizing his ambition. In 1897, the brothers rented a tiny workshop in Puteaux, near Paris, where they began construction of a single-cylinder car with a tubular chassis and 3-speed belt drive. Short of funds and working only in their spare time, the brothers progressed slowly, helped latterly by their friends Louis Naudin. The car was running by 1902, but the transmission was not a success, so Césaire devised a novel form of gearing, on which 3 forward speeds were provided by a propeller shaft, which could be shifted so that pinions of varying diameter were forced into engagement with the long-suffering crown wheel. It was apparently the first time that a car had been provided by 3 direct drives forward. Another novelty was the use of independent front suspension, by sliding pillars linked by a transverse leaf spring. In this form, the car was complete by 1904 and was shown at the Exposition des Petits Inventeurs in March 1905, where its design attracted much attention. A company was formed for its production and a stand taken at the 1905 Paris Salon. Many orders were forthcoming for the Césaire-Naudin light car, and by 1906, 2 cars a day were leaving the factory. But it had been priced too low, and the newly formed company ran into financial difficulties. It was bought by the Deux Douzes, who provided sufficient capital for the firm to indulge in some sporting activities as well as building private cars. First fruits of this new sporting policy was the entry of 3 cars in the original Coupe de l'Auto race in 1906. And a victory by Georges Césaire with a standard 1244cc single-cylinder Césaire in this somewhat unsatisfactory 6-day event.
We did it, Mutley! We're in the lead! We can't lose now!
More significant was the Marque's first place in the Coupe des Voiturettes run over the tortuous Targa Florio course just before the Paris Salon of 1906 at an average speed of 21.7 miles per hour. Remember that at this time most races were organized by local automobile clubs or even by newspapers. The latter were even organizing non-championship races across the world until 40 years ago. L'Auto was a French newspaper, and it organized some of the first ever races in closed circuits, after the disaster of the open, early city-to-city races. In 1903, in the last one, Paris-Madrid, in the end of the first day, almost half of the field had either retired, crashed and/or died. Already at the time, many manufacturers did understand the importance of motor racing to advertise their products. Racing was a business and a sport since the very beginning. In 1907, the Coupe des Voiturettes, organized by de l'Auto, was gaining importance. Of course, the manufacturers pushed their drivers to turn record laps, so that next day they could add a fastest lap in their fresh newspaper advertisement. I think that's the main reason why line 2 of the original rules included that the exact lap times of the endurance 30 km/h part would not be published and not be passed on to the competitors. The Coupe des Voiturettes was a specific event for Voiturette of the Grand Prix type, organized between the second half of the 1900s and the first half of the 1920s, 7 times before the war and 4 afterwards, mainly in Boulogne-sur-Mer, then at Le Mans. This 1907 race was held in Rambouillet, near Paris, and had a 32 km course. The Césaire et Naudin Racing Voiturette was a voiture en essai, a car being tested, and had to carry a W registration, meaning no direct taxis, on the way from Paris to the Rambouillet course. During the scrutineering, the cylinders were stamped, the carburetors and intake manifolds were sealed, atmospheric air had to be the agent of oxidation, and every other agent of oxidation was forbidden. Strictly, the endurance part of each day had to be covered with an average between 30 and 40 km/h. For some reason, the 800 troops supplied from the nearest garrison to protect the 32-km course arrived late on the opening day of the contest, so that the start had to be delayed from 8 a.m. to noon. Some drivers were impatient and rushed around the course at the highest possible speed. As a consequence, a soldier suffered a broken leg and the hairpin near Rambouillet was completely dug up. As a consequence of the accidents and speed violations in the villages during the first day, Monday 21 of October 1907, the officials added, and I quote, "The notorious imprudence of some has put the members of the jury of the Cup in the necessity of taking the following decision. The 40 km/h maximum average is imposed on the competitors. That is to say that any driver who will have exceeded the average of 40 will first receive a warning and will be disqualified afterwards. The 40 average corresponds to 50 minutes per lap. Thus, manufacturers, give your riders the formal order not to turn at less than 50 minutes per lap." End quote.
Who says only good guys win?
A team of 3 long-stroke cars was specially built for the 1907 Coupe de l'Auto, with single-cylinder engines of 1178 cc equipped with steel instead of cast iron pistons, which began to develop cracks during the endurance run section of the event. So the drivers were forced on one lap to drive into a wood and remove the cylinder to change the pistons in secret. They still maintained the required average, and the timekeepers put the delay down to a call of nature. And by virtue of this pleasant subterfuge, Louis Naudin came first, followed by Georges Césaire. It seems as though the Césaire-Naudin company was the first to realize that, though the regulations of the Coupe de l'Auto restricted the bore of a car, the length of the stroke was up to the manufacturer and his engineering ability, real or imagined. It was a widely copied ploy, yet the Césaire-Naudin racers were never tall-bonneted freaks like the Lyon Peugeots. It is known that no times nor orders of arrival were communicated to the public during the 6-day trials. Hence, not being possible to identify those slower laps from Louis Naudin, Georges Césaire and Le Bouc. This story clearly comes from Maurice Cizer's own memories, Histoire d'un petit bricoleur, written in 1964. On October 21, 1907, we appeared on the starting line with 3 cars, having single-cylinder engines of 100 mm per 150 mm. We were thus able to win this race once more, Nodin being first at an average speed of 40.66 miles per hour, Georges Cizer was second 2 minutes behind the winner. During the regularity portion of this race, there occurred an incident which it was necessary to keep absolutely secret, for had it become known to the organizers, we should certainly have been disqualified. In view of the very long piston stroke and the unusually high lineal speed, we had decided against the use of cast iron pistons, generally employed at the time, in favor of steel pistons, machined out of the solid. At the time, engineers had decided that piston speed should not exceed 4 meters per second, whereas in our case the speed was 11 meters per second. But we had calculated the thickness of the piston heads too closely, and they began to give way during the endurance portion of the race. The only solution was to change the pistons. In order to do this, our drivers hid their cars, one after the other, in a small wood, and we were able to change the pistons rapidly without anybody being aware of what was happening, and without falling back on the required average speed. The work was relatively easy, for it was only necessary to remove the 4 nuts holding the cylinder down, to lift the cylinder, to drive out the gudgeon pin, to put the new piston in place, and tighten the holding down nuts. It was possible to do this work in about 10 minutes. Of course, the stewards noticed that one lap was longer than the others, but they attributed this to a natural operation. This first-time-out success of the long-stroke Cizer-Nodin caused such consternation among the Marque's racing rivals that they demanded an official examination of the car's fuel, and were duly nonplussed to find them burning ordinary petrol. This is, probably, and in my opinion, the best part of this story. They did not demand an official examination of the whole car. Well, as they usually say,
Nice guys finish last.
and this is it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like, share it with your friends, subscribe for more videos like this, and drop a line in the comments section if you have something to say or ask. I see you in the next video. Take care.